Throughout history, there has always been proof of violence as entertainment. For example, gladiators fighting in the Colosseum, sumo wrestling, the WWE, and now we have violent films. 300, The Human Centipede, and Gladiator are some examples of violent movies today. I'm sure some of you have seen your fair share of violent movies. When I was a kid, my dad showed me Cujo to show me that not all dogs were as nice as ours. And this is what I saw when I was 6 years old. Was this a good idea for my father to do? I don't think it was, because after that, I couldn't be alone with our St. Bernard without thinking she would turn on me. Although parents ultimately decide what movies their children watch, violent movies have negative effects on children, which is why we need better security for gruesome films in movie theaters. Violent movies can have harmful effects on children's behavior, negative mental effects, and desensitize children. First, I would like to talk about the connection between violent movies and children's behavior. People believe violent movies can have a negative effect on children's behavior. They are known to make children more antisocial. Eats and Dirk wrote Introduction, the Problem of Entertaining Violence, in the issue of Projections, the Journal for Movies in Mind. Quote, there is an actual correlation between use of violent entertainments and a tendency toward antisocial behavior, particularly among children, unquote. This means that there is some evidence connecting violence from media to children's behavior. If children become more antisocial, they won't talk, and if they won't talk, they'll start expressing themselves through their actions. When I was in high school, I had to babysit these 2 middle school boys, and all they ever watched was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. But whenever they got into disargument, they would always fight about it. Now, it was entertaining, but it isn't how they should handle disagreements. Children are becoming more aggressive through violent movies. And the impact of entertainment violence on children, written by the American Academy of Pediatrics on July 26, 2000, quote, children who see a lot of violence are more likely to view violence as an effective way of settling conflicts. Children exposed to violence are more likely to assume that acts of violence are acceptable behavior, unquote. We need to make sure that kids don't choose to use violence to settle a disagreement. If they grow up thinking that, then what happens when they have a dispute with their boss? They can't just fight it out or else they'll get fired. Antisocial behavior and expressing themselves through aggression are consequences of violent movies introduced to children. Not only do violent movies cause negative effects on their behavior, but they also have negative mental ramifications. Violent movies can cause desensitization in children. They can cause emotional numbness to violence. According to Sylvie Mugg, Ajana Maiden, Edwin Cook, and Rex Wright, authors of Emotional and Physiological Desensitization to Real Life and Movie Violence, as published in Journal of Youth and Adolescence, quote, individuals exposed to higher levels of movie violence showed more pronounced habituation effects that may indicate physiological desensitization to televised violence, unquote. We also become a little more accepting to violence in real life when we see more of violence on television. Quote, viewing violence can lead to emotional desensitization towards violence in real life. It can decrease the likelihood that one will take action on behalf of a victim when violence occurs, unquote, says the American Academy of Pediatrics. Desensitization can become a problem when interacting with other kids. If a kid who is numb to violence noticed another kid being beaten up, they wouldn't help them out. This is another reason why we need to have better security. Now that I talked about desensitization, let's talk about what movie theaters can do to improve their security. The ratings should be changed to correctly match the movie, and theaters should start hurting people more. Some movie theaters are lowering the ratings for violent movies. More people are better able to access them at an earlier age now. According to Rodney Clapp, author of More Than Entertainment, as published in the Christian Century, not so many years ago, Texas Chainsaw 3D would have been rated NC-17. Now it earns an R rating and plays to teenagers, unquote. I think we all need to have a mindset like grandparents. I don't know about your grandparents, but mine never owned any movie that wasn't animated. At least, I didn't see anything that wasn't animated. They could have had an adult stash or something. But the one movie I remember my grandma having that I never got tired of was Balto. Have any of you guys ever heard of that or seen it? Yeah. Well, it's a great true story about not letting your differences keep you back from doing what you have a passion for. Those are the movies we should have children watch because they're great needs, and that's what they need in their early childhood. That's why I think we should follow the grandparent mindset and think, what would you want your future kids seeing? We can do that by making the ratings match their violence level. Movie theaters need to have better security for R-rated films. If we start carding people more, then the younger kids won't be able to see violent things they're not ready for. Then they won't be desensitized to the real world and show their kids gruesome movies before they're ready, continuing the vicious cycle we live in right now. Plus, people like being carded. It makes the older people feel younger and the younger people feel older. This is how we solve the situation. In conclusion, violent movies can increase antisocial behavior, aggressiveness, and desensitize us from violence. If we choose to be cautious of what we show kids, then these things are less likely to happen. We need to make sure that movies have stricter security on who watches them. This will help our society grow more attentive of what is happening in our world and leave the next generation in a better place.